Hello and welcome to me talking again for some reason. Today I thought we would talk about Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Imagine a world where Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy really hate each other, but in this world they also share a dorm in the school, and their hatred for each other is really just a cover for them wanting to boink each other. Draco is a vampire, Hermione is Harry's closest friend, and Ron doesn't really exist or do anything. So kind of like the movies. When I've been searching around on the internet, I found out that a lot of people don't really like it when you compare Carry On to a Harry Potter fanfic, which I don't really get that. First of all, it clearly is a Harry Potter fanfic. I mean, there are so many parallels between the two. Are people so obsessed with one thing being its own thing? There can never be any crossovers or parallels or authors getting inspiration from other authors or other books, so that they are unable to see that a book about a magical school with 3 children fighting an evil entity has taken inspiration from one of the most popular fantasy series of all times, which kind of acted as the spark for these kind of fantasy series. Really? I get the feeling that those kind of people that get upset when others compare Carry On and Harry Potter are the same kind of people that get upset when YouTubers copy other YouTubers by playing the same game, even though I think most games are supposed to be played by more than one person. If you're able to read this book without making any comparison whatsoever to Harry Potter, I kind of feel like you will have a less of an experience than what I had comparing every single detail. When I started reading this book, I wasn't really looking for a Harry Potter fanfic. I was looking for LGBTQ plus books. I realized that this was Harry Potter fanfic like after reading 1 or 2 chapters. Dude, you gotta stop saying it's a fanfic. You're annoying even yourself right now. It's a reimagining. I just wish I knew how to shut you up. Yeah, I sometimes wish that too. I'm gonna go. Please don't talk anymore about Harry Potter or fanfics. So anyway, after finishing this book, or maybe not even that late, after just reading like 1/3 of the book, I realized that I needed to talk about it. And not just because of that reason, even though that's one of the reasons. One of the things that made it super trippy to read this book is that it's about some characters from a book that takes place in another book. The characters Simon and Baz originated from the story Fangirl, also by Rainbow Rowell. And here they are characters in a very popular fantasy series. The main character from Fangirl, she loves those books and she also writes fan fictions about them.
So when we read Carry On, are we then reading about the book that takes place in Fangirl, or are we reading the fan fiction made by the protagonist there? These 2 different universes, so that they don't really come together in any way. Is it like in Supernatural, where Chuck wrote the supernatural books about Sam and Dean's lives, but they didn't know that there were any books about them, and the fans didn't know that they were based on real people, and then the world collided? So is it like that they exist on the same space, or are we supposed to see it like only like fiction, and we're not supposed to see them as real people, or is it like 2 different universes? So
when it comes to romance, I'm really not that big of a fan, but when we have enemies to lovers, when there are 2 people that really hate each other, but there's some kind of raw attraction between these 2, and the only way that they know to like exist in the same space is by hating each other, then I'm kind of on board. And this book delivers to the max. Simon and Baz seem to hate each other, or at least be annoyed with each other for like 90% of the book, if not even more. Since Simon is like the main protagonist, we follow him throughout most of the book. We see his point of view for the most part, and he thinks about Baz all of the time, and he's annoyed with every little thing. But we all know that this is just code word, because he tries to say that, oh, I need to think about Baz and know what he's doing and be around him because Baz is evil, Baz is a vampire, Baz has tried to kill me a couple of times. Fine, I get that Simon doesn't realize that he's attracted to Baz. Sometimes we can't understand what we're feeling. However, how can't any other characters around him? Why don't anyone realize that Simon is attracted to Baz? I mean, he talks about him constantly. It surprises me that not even Penelope, Simon's best friend who knows everything about him, not even she is able to figure out this. I mean, isn't she supposed to be the brightest witch of their year? Wrong book. So anyway, they try to keep up this hatred for each other because it means so much to both of them. We all know that it won't last because they are thrown into situations with each other all of the time. They are forced to be alone together, to touch each other, to smell each other, to look into each other's eyes, to have a sleepover at Baz's family's house, and they have to sleep in the same room because Simon is too scared to sleep in his own room because it's haunted by some old ghost. Yes, Simon, the main protagonist who isn't scared of anything, he's scared of a ghost in Baz's house, so he has to sleep in the same room as Baz because Baz can keep him safe. Baz, the person who has tried to kill him, who he hates, who he thinks is an evil person, he feels safe sleeping next to him. Yeah, he doesn't want him at all. And that brings us into... If you've read and you really enjoyed the books by Holly Black or Sabaa Tahir, then I actually think you will enjoy this book as well. And the reason being, because there are hormones everywhere. If you've read or watched the movie Annihilation or The Girl with All the Gifts, that's kind of how it felt with this book. I mean, no, it's not a horror book. Sure, if you scare really easily, or are afraid of boy cooties, then sure, it's a scary book. In these worlds, there are spores everywhere that changes people's DNA and they become zombies and monsters and whatever. Feels like the hormones are like spores that are just like taking over their whole universe. No one can escape the hormones. For those of you that have already read this book, was anyone not able to figure out every single detail of the major events? It was so easy to guess that Simon and Baz were into each other, that the magician was the bad guy, and that Rosebud was for Simon and not for Baz. It just feels like if you want a mystery book where you are invited to solve the crime together with the characters, you will not really get that here because it's super easy to guess what will happen. And I'm not really saying that as a bad thing because this book isn't that dependent on if it's a surprise or not. I mean, for some people it's super important for things to be a surprise. I just felt like it doesn't really matter if you know every single thing that will happen in this book. I mean, knowing where Baz is through half of the book, or who the humdrum is, or who the woman whose chapters are like every second chapter, knowing these things doesn't really destroy the story. It's still an entertaining book. And I think that's one of the strengths of it. Sure, it's super obvious to guess what will happen, but it's still a lot of fun. Beside there being this book within a book and the thing I'm not allowed to talk about, there were some things that confused me a little bit or made my reading experience a little less fun. And the biggest one of them is the bad guy. Is there really a bad guy? I mean, there doesn't have to be a bad guy for a book to be enjoyable, but it felt like the book itself didn't really know who the bad guy was. At first, we are introduced to Simon and Baz, and we are told by Simon that Baz is the evil one, the one we have to keep track of, even though, yeah, we know that he isn't really evil. And then we have the humdrum that is just like in the shadows all of the time, and we're told that this is the bad guy, but we don't really see that much of him. We're just told about him. And then we realize that no, the humdrum isn't really the bad guy either, but instead it's the magician that's supposed to be the bad guy. And it's really weird to me because he doesn't feel like the bad guy. Sure, he did a couple of evil things. Yeah, he's not a good guy. He let the vampires into the school that killed people, and he also tries to sacrifice a woman in the end. But his reasonings for doing stuff isn't really evil. He wanted to make the school less exclusive, like open it up so that more people can be a part of the magical world and get an education. In the end, he wanted to stop the humdrum because it was taking over the world. And the only way he saw that would help was by sacrificing someone. Sure, it's not a good reason really, but is it evil though? And maybe that's the thing, that he's not supposed to be this evil guy, but they are treating him by the end like he is the evil guy. Like every reason he had was evil, and they're not even sad that he died. The person that Simon has been following for so many years and trusted with everything, all of a sudden it's like, no, he's evil. Okay, bye. Let's go away and just make out with my boyfriend now. So I kind of feel like it didn't fit with his character, because we're told that the magician is the smartest wizard in the whole magical world, that he can solve the thing with the humdrum, that he's been working on this for so many years. But then when Simon figures out what the humdrum is, he doesn't really present it to the magician at all, because the magician is too far gone or something. But I feel like if Simon had just told the magician, then everything would have solved itself. Him being so smart, wouldn't he be able to understand that Simon was telling the truth and that they maybe should try that first before murdering people? It's just, there were a lot of steps that we didn't see, from the magician being this good guy to him being the bad guy. This brings me to my second thing, which is Baz's mother. Everyone in the book seems to love her so much. Everyone's talking about how she was the perfect headmistress, and they're so sad that she died because she was so lovely and did so much good. But in the same way as we're told that the magician is evil, which I don't really believe, is she really that good? Wasn't she the one that wanted to keep the school closed off? And when the magician took over, he was able to open it up. So she just wanted to keep magic to a specific group and saw other people as lesser beings. Besides Penelope's family, I think, no one really saw it as a problem when she was in charge of the school. Which, I don't know, it just feels weird. Last of all, it really is a Harry Potter fanfic, because we have 3 children that are able to solve this mystery with this dark entity and what it all means and just save the magical realm without any help from any adults. And not even the magician, who is the smartest wizard in the magical world. Not even he can solve it, and he's been trying for so many years. But I guess what you needed was a whiteboard and 3 children in a room just thinking for an evening to connect Simon and those dark spots and the humdrum. I mean, that's not something that a really brilliant person that has spent time with Simon and know about all these things, it's not something that they can figure out. It needs to be 3 teenagers. To conclude, this really is a Harry Potter fanfic, but in a world where Harry and Draco finally gets to act on their feelings for each other, and also Dumbledore gets to answer for his crimes of being a douchebag. Okay, I'm